let's talk about the energetics of boundaries. There are a lot of misconceptions around boundaries, and I just want to look at it from the energetical perspective, because essentially what boundaries mean is I give you your energy back and you give me my energy back, or I'm taking my energy back and you're taking your energy back, so that there's there's clarity between what is yours and what is mine. And it's boundaries. I think one of the biggest misconceptions around boundaries is that you can control somebody with your boundaries, because you can't. That's just stupid, and it's trying to control the other, and it's not like setting a vulnerable boundary because something is affecting you. And even if you set a boundary, it might be that the other person doesn't like that, and that is okay. And then you get to choose to be like, okay, do I want to still have anything to do with that person if they are not respecting my vulnerable boundary? Because this is like, we can't, like, that's one of the biggest things with boundaries. It's not about controlling the other. It's not like, oh, I've set my boundary now and like they are still not doing it, but I'm still interacting with that person. Like, that is your responsibility then. That is your responsibility to be like, okay, I'm taking my energy fully back and I'm not willing to engage with you anymore because you are not respecting me. You are not honoring my energy. You are not honoring, like if we're talking about like openness, for example, open centers, you are not honoring my open centers where I'm multiplying you, for example. And you're just like giving me bullshit basically, and I'm multiplying that for you, and I don't want that. So sorry, not interacting with you anymore. And there are different degrees, and I was just listening to a podcast the other day about boundaries as well, again, because it's a huge thing for me in the past few weeks, I guess. Because I'm on a whole new energetic level of setting boundaries, I guess. I thought I'm already quite good with my boundaries, but I guess I was majorly just hiding to not set certain boundaries, and now that I'm doing, it's fucking hard. And it's also kind of like eye-opening in a way of like, there is so much energetical mix-up and mash-up when it comes to boundaries, or when it comes to like not having boundaries, because essentially we are not setting boundaries because we are scared. We are scared of, like, there are so many components that are like playing into that on like a energetical, emotional, karmic, whatever perspective that are interfering into this. But essentially it's our fear of being rejected, our fears of being alone, our fear of losing the other, and all these things that are making us not set certain boundaries and like accommodating the other's energy. And especially if we're thinking about projectors and reflectors, and like non-sacrals who are wide open, taking on all the sacral energy. For us, it's even more important to be able to set freaking boundaries. And because if we don't realize it, and this is what happened to me just a few weeks ago, if we don't realize that we are taking on the sacral energy, plus on top more other energy centers that are not ours or not our own energy, it can get really hard to get out of that. It can get, the more clear you are in your energy, the more shit you have cleared out, the more shit you are also taking on if you are not aware anymore. If you let go for a moment with somebody where it might not be healthy to do this. And that's why I'm like just inviting you to become aware when you interact with certain people. Where are you like, and if it is, and often it's the tiniest thing where you're undermining yourself, and this is what gets it started. It's like the tiny thing where somebody does something, or has spoken to you in a certain way, has said something, whatever, and you've been like, and you have not said it. and you have not given back the energy, you have not setting the boundary of like, nope, this is yours, I'm not taking this on. You have kept it in. And this is when it gets started. This is when it gets started that you are starting to fill up this tank of resentment, of bitterness, of frustration, of whatever. And because it was this tiny thing that started it. And I don't want to go into like it's big wounding or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Because if you've done a lot of personal development work, if you've done a lot of healing work, at some point it is maybe purely just you needing to be able to work with your energetics. It's not something, oh, I need to heal this, or this should have happened, blah, blah, blah. Because sometimes maybe it's not that way anymore. It should have, because it happened, because you still need to learn to set your boundaries. You still need to learn or remember how your energetic body feels and how your energetic centers work. But it might not be anymore that you have to do like become more perfect or more healed or whatever. Like this is all like a misconception anyway. Like we are all healed, we are all whole, okay? So you don't need to become more perfect or better or whatever kind of bullshit. It is about understanding your energetics and using them in the right way so that people cannot like fill you up with shit and you not letting yourself be filled up with shit. Because it's, in this case, of course, it comes back to accountability of being like, fuck, I let this happen. I let somebody fill myself up with shit because I didn't speak my truth in 1 second, and then it accumulated because I didn't want to go into into conflict. Because this is like the major fear of like boundary setting is like fear of conflict, of like separation, of distance. The problem is if we don't do it now, it will happen later. And if this connection is not supposed to stay, it's better to separate it now than to separate it like, and then to go into like this big full blow up, because like energies are so mixed up. And like I can say it out of experience now that if you have a very open profile and you take on a lot of energies of others, and if you see certain things or hear certain things in a certain way, you might even start speaking like the other person, and they might even start speaking like you, because you're like really like, depending on how your profiles or your charts interact with each other, like switching roles because your energies are so mixed up. And we don't want that, because we want to be in our own energy. And this is also one of the major things of like, when you learn to love yourself, you want to be in your own energy. When you really start embracing your design, when you really start embracing your essence, who you really are, your expression, like all of this, you don't want to be anybody else anymore. You just want to be yourself, because this feels good to yourself. This feels good to the people who love you. This feels good to the world. And this feels even good if you set, like, maybe it feels uncomfortable to set the boundaries, but the boundaries eventually also feel good to the other people. Maybe not initially, but they will eventually, if they use them, if they at some point understand why you did that, if they deep down love you, and if they deep down honor you in a certain way. Because so I hope that was in any way supportive. Let me think if I can still give you like a very like hands-on example. I think a major, like maybe a really good example is, for example, the emotion center from human design perspective. So I have an open emotion center, and I immediately feel when somebody comes to me with a baggage of emotions, because this person has a defined emotional center and is not feeling their emotions. Because I get really freaking emotional around these people, and they think I'm the crazy one. Because if I don't set the boundary early enough, I'm gonna like basically mirror to them what they are not feeling. And this is though not healthy for my system. So what's important is to, like, if you're already in it, to realize, oh shit, fuck, I just got myself some energy in that is not mine, that I don't want, and that I need to give back. So either you're sincerely giving this back to the other person by actually voicing that. It takes confidence to do that, but it's also like really supportive for both sides to learn this. Or if you are already away from that person, you just feel like shit because you were like crying and like doing all this, and you're like, where the hell is this coming from? Start like sitting with it, breathing through it. I do breathwork sessions. If you ever want to try breathwork, talk to me. My contacts are in the notes. Learning how to feel, how to actually sit with feelings and just allowing them to pass through, allowing the energy to move out through your extremities. These are things that we can do, for example. There are certain things that are more difficult, and especially if a lot of centers are activated, it can be like, fuck, I don't know how to get out of this. And then I invite you to ask for support, to ask for empowerment, to ask people who have dealt with it, and let yourself be guided through these experiences. And because you don't have to hold it in, you don't have to do it alone. You get to be empowered, you get to have a support system. And yeah, and it's scary to set freaking boundaries. It's really, it feels like we like, I mean, it really triggers our deepest fear of death in the end, because it's kind of like in earlier days, if we would have set a boundary with the tribe, we would have basically died, because they would have, like, if they would have rejected us for that boundary, we would have been alone in the snow somewhere and just be like, okay, eaten by the tiger. But in today's times, this is not what's happening anymore. And we have to train our systems that it is safe to set boundaries, that it is safe to tend to the people who respect them, who honor them, and with whom it is safe to be super vulnerable, and who can also set boundaries with our vulnerability if they don't have the capacity to hold it. Because that is another thing of, like, sometimes we're super vulnerable with people and they don't have the proper capacity to hold it, and they don't have the capacity to set the boundary, and then we are in a freaking mess. But also there, people need to learn that if somebody comes with vulnerability, to dare to be like, hey, listen, I see you, I feel you, and I feel like I don't have the capacity to hold that space for you right now, because, like, there's so much going on within me that I can't cope with this. Do you have anybody else to talk to? Can I connect you with somebody? If this is even in your capacity in that moment. Maybe it's not, then that's also totally fine. And, like, tending to your own energy system and to your own self first is always more the more beneficial thing. Trust me, please. The only time where this might not be the case is in a life-death scenario when somebody's basically dying on the street, and then you will know. But in every other situation, people can hold way more than you think. They can. And I needed to learn that the hard way. I'm learning it again right now. And trusting that you don't have to carry the weight of the world. You don't have to carry anybody else's pain than your own, because that is enough. Trust that. Trust that, trust that, trust that, and dare to set the boundary. Dare to be like, hey, I don't have the capacity right now. I'm coming back to you whenever I have. Dare to be like, I don't want you to speak to me right now because I am in anxiety. And if they don't respect that, then it's okay. Then you know that this is not a person to talk to about those things anymore. And that's okay. But you get to feel safe in your system. You get to, be in your own expression And also don't let anybody limit you because they don't like your expression. Because sometimes people are communicating in a way where it sounds like to you that they are setting a boundary, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this anymore, and like, oh shit, I made a mistake. When in fact, they are trying to control you by saying those things. By saying, oh, I don't want you to act like this anymore. X, Y, Z, whatever. Or to express yourself in that way. Yeah, and if that is, if that is their boundary, if let's say this is a boundary, this is not trying to control you, maybe it is, maybe it's trying to control you. If it's a boundary, you still get to choose if you want to tend to that boundary, or if you just want to turn your back on that person, because you want to stay within your truth and within your essence and within who you are, and like express your truth, express yourself in a way that feels good to you, that is your path, your soul's path on this planet. And don't let anybody like put a lid on that. Please keep your light. Like, no matter what happens, choose your own light. Choose your own light. Speak soon. If you want me to mentor you, if you want to do breathwork with me, there will be, maybe it's already there when I'm posting this video, more abundance sessions, like energetic movement sessions. I do more videos now for that. I don't know if on here or on Instagram, but like, follow me. Everything is in the notes, and I'm so excited to maybe speak to you at some point.